Hey everybody, it's Tim from Tadabase here, and today I'm bringing you 10 tips and tricks that you can use when building your app inside of Tadabase. Whether you are a beginner builder just getting started with the platform, or you're an expert Tadabase builder, I hope you find these tips and tricks useful. Some of them you might know, some of them you might not. All right, so stay tuned and let's get started. Creating parent and child pages inside of Tadabase is a cornerstone of the actual page builder and how you construct the front end of your application. Now, did you know that you can actually create multiple details pages per component? All right, to do that, all we have to do is edit a particular component and we can add as many details pages as we want. Once we hit update and save, this is going to create all of the detail pages that we might need. Now, why would you want to do this? Well, what if you wanted to look at this particular company and have each button linked to a detail page that does a specific purpose, rather than building one detail page for multiple purposes? One of the best parts about using Tadabase to build an app is the amount of customization that you can apply to nearly any place inside of the actual application. But what if you're looking for some preset customization in order to change the overall appearance of your app? We can do that by going to the theme section of your app settings. So choose Settings, Themes, Explore All Themes. And inside the themes page here, we have two tabs, General and Custom. I'm going to choose Custom here, and let's select something like Hippo and see that when we refresh our page, the entire appearance of the application has changed dramatically. Now, this next tip has to do with users and user roles, meaning who's going to be accessing your application and how do you want to restrict them, place permissions on them, and control security within your application. Well, inside the page builder, I'm going to show you how you can utilize page layouts in order to do this. By creating individual layouts or separate layouts per user role that you may have. And let's go back and look at the user roles here for just a moment. We have employees, admins, and customers. When we jump back over to the page builder, you see I've created a layout for employees, admins, and customers. Now, additionally, I've created security rules for these layouts that match the role. So only users with the employee role can access a page within the employee layout. Now, what's the reason behind this? Well, it's a very simple way to organize your pages. It's almost like creating folders where all of the pages within that folder are built and designed for a specific user role. All right, this next tip has to do with using your application across multiple devices. I'm assuming you're going to have users on mobile, you're going to have users on desktop. Well, what if you want to take a component and hide it on desktop, but show it on mobile, or vice versa? To do this, we can actually modify the media query setting for the actual column that the component lives inside of. By going up to the settings for any given column, I can choose what screen size I want to hide this component for. So for tables, I want to show those on laptop and desktop, but I want to hide it on tablet and phone. Now, on the flip side, when somebody is looking at this page on their phone or tablet, I want to hide the list component on the laptop and desktop. Now, just to clarify, these two components are showing the exact same thing. Now, if we take a look at what this page would look like when we actually view it in a responsive environment, on something like an iPhone 12 Pro, only the list component shows, but if we scale this out, this will automatically show the table when the screen size reaches a certain width. Now, the next tip is really similar to the previous one in the sense that we're talking about hiding or showing things based on a particular condition. But in this case, we're talking about row visibility. Now, I did an entire Build It with Tim video on this, and I highly suggest you go watch that so that you can kind of see some practical examples and use cases for what you can do with that feature. But to quickly show you how to enable row visibility, let's say we want to hide this entire row, so the section in green. Now, this row could contain multiple columns, it could contain multiple components, it doesn't matter. We want to hide the entire row based on a particular logged in user's condition. Whether this row is public, the user is not logged in, the user is logged in, or the user has a specific role. Now, the difference between public and non-logged in users is public is going to display for everybody regardless if they are logged in or not. Non-logged in users means that the moment that they do log in, this row will no longer be visible. This next tip is a little bit more advanced, and it has to do with all of the different IDs that are created by Tadabase and stored kind of behind the scenes, but they're useful for things like API requests or really advanced automations where you need a specific ID for a field, record, or table. The table ID can be seen in the URL when you click on any table within the actual data builder, and it's right up here in the URL after data table. So you can see here is that ID made up of a bunch of different numbers and letters. Now, following this structure, if we edit a particular record and look at that URL again, you'll see that there's now been a new ID appended at the end after the word records and the slash. This is the record ID. And lastly, once we're actually looking at all of the records, if we go to the Fields tab and click this setting icon here, we can choose to show the field slug and field ID. So let's turn these both on and take a look at them. Here we have an actual hashed ID, and then here we have the field slug, which is more or less the number for the particular field. Now again, all of these are referenceable through advanced automations, through JavaScript, CSS, and of course API requests. All right, bonus tip time when we're talking about record IDs. A little thing that I like to do on nearly every app that I build is create a text field, call this record ID, and then create a table rule to store the actual record ID inside of this text field every time a record is created or edited. This gives me the ability to actually have that record ID stored inside the record and made visible to me whenever I need it. All right, we're still inside the data builder for this next tip. Now, this next tip has to do with actually managing and viewing data inside of the data builder when you're looking at any given data table. I can filter this table. Let's say I want to look at companies where the industry is tech. I can view these for record. Now, if I navigate away from this page and I go to something like the investments table and then I go back to the companies table, then that filtered view is gone. But did you know you can actually save this filtered view so that you can always come back to it when you need it? So here we'll apply that filter again, and then I'll click the button Save View, and we'll do industry, or we'll call this tech industry. Now, that view is always saved up here, and I can always come back to it when I need it, and it will apply those filters as soon as I click on that view. Have you ever been testing something that you're building inside of your app when you're using a Tadabase pipe and wondered what's going on behind the scenes? Well, using debug mode for pipes will give you the ability to see this. You can enable pipe debug mode by going to your installed pipe and selecting enable debug mode. What this does is when you run this pipe on the front end on the live app, so let's get the weather in Atlanta, Georgia today. We get 72 degrees. We can actually see in the developer inspector here under the console tab all of the pipe responses. Now, if the pipe was returning an error, you would see that here as well. Super helpful to get more information about what the pipe is doing behind the scenes. For this next tip, we're talking about CSS classes and how we can use them inside of things like HTML components. I want to take this HTML component that says welcome to your employee dashboard, and I want to give it a very similar look to when an alert pops up on screen, whether it's the form submission alert for successful form submission or the danger one, which is the red one that pops up when something goes wrong. I can utilize some of these pre-built classes right inside of this HTML source code by typing class equals, and then we'll do alert space alert dash, and then I can choose whether I want to do success, info, warning, or danger. So if I did something like alert, alert, danger, and save this, you'll see it's going to turn that red. When we load this, now we have this alert looking HTML component. Let's go ahead and change this back to something like info as a welcome message for our employees when they log in. Right, moving on, we're talking about form components and connection fields. Did you know that you can actually change how this dropdown appears when you're selecting a connected record on a form? To change this, I'm going to go into my page builder, select my form, select my connection field in order to edit it, and head to the design tab. From here, I can change the connection field style from something like dropdown to list or table. And when I choose this, I can then select multiple fields from the actual company record to display on the dropdown. So to give us significantly more context when selecting a connection, we can add a whole bunch of fields here in order to do that. Now, when I go back to this page, you're going to see this dropdown looks different. And when I click it, I can now see the company name, the address, the website, and the industry. In the final bonus tip, when we're talking about forms and changing how fields appear inside the form, we can change the way a radio select field appears by showing the icon that we've selected inside the field settings. Inside the company's table here, under the industry radio field, each radio option has an icon associated with it. If I go to the page builder and the form that contains that particular field, I can click on that form and choose to show the icons. And when we come back to our form, the icons will show next to each radio option. So that's it for today in the 10 tips and tricks for Tadabase. Hope you enjoyed this video and maybe you learned something new that you didn't know previously. And again, if you are new to the platform, a beginner builder, I hope all of these tips are beneficial to you and will make your journey through Tadabase all the better. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Take care.